Right, let's do it then. Here we go. Thorin's Curiosity segment.
Oh, God.
So here's the thing, Deficio. As far as I can tell, you effectively added years to the career of nukeduck with your work. Some tongue-in-cheek, some also, you did think he was a very good player. On the desk, obviously, with the year of the duck. It was like some fucked up Chinese kind of where every year is the year of the duck. It's like that thing with the clocks, like, oh, I guess it's this time, it's every single thing's on it. Right, when you did this, I would say extended his career. I would say it made him a lot more money, something like, but he was in Origin for 2 years after that, so we all know that ain't the case. But here's the thing. A lot of people, after these last two splits, they're out completely on nukeduck. A lot of people were like, it's time for him to retire. Nobody, it feels like no fan wanted him in LEC anymore. Like, this guy went from one of the top mid laners to, like, he's not even allowed to be on the worst team. And so then there's a situation where I noticed when Youngbok picked up him to excel now, again, people were like, why are you doing this? Why not first of all, why not give Chekolad more time? Maybe they think the Vethio angle, like he's going to be good in the summer, or why not go with another ERL player? There's always a few coming through in every EU Masters, right? He's taken a big gamble doing that. And considering he himself, he hasn't made playoffs a lot, he's gambling a lot of his reputation on nukeduck there. He's not doing it lightly. Like that's a big deal, It's kind of the one that could potentially change his fortunes or doom him to be considered he was just carried by good players, which is what fans will say. So I thought you'll be someone who has some insight, and listen, you know how to talk on camera. You'll be doing it for like 10 minutes every question here. So I trust you to be able to carefully give us some info without spoiling anything. Right? What would you say? How would you explain like the fall of nukeduck, and like what are your expectations from him now? Like, how can you carefully give us some sort of insight? Because as I say, he went from being a guy where you had like 15 champions, he's an amazing side laner. All of a sudden, last two splits, people just think he's not good anymore.
I think nukeduck himself did talk a bit about publicly, because I don't know too much about that side, but he was talking about how he had to step down from Astralis halfway through spring and take a personal break. I think so when we signed nukeduck, so this was now 2.5 years ago, there was a ton of competition for him. We were competing with C9 and some other NA teams, and then we were competing against, I think it was 3 or 4 EU teams probably. For him, he had just had the Schalke final run, where he obviously was one of the key players. My first signing was Andre, who was the head coach of Schalke, and obviously we sat down and were starting to build a roster. And for mid lane, there was nukeduck as a veteran name, and then there was maybe Niski. Nobody knew what was happening with Splice at the time, whether or not he was going to be available or not, and so on. And then it would be rookie mid laners, effectively, from what people were looking at the time. Because this was when I believe Fabian had just had his bad split in North America.
Yes.
With Clutch, and then he got signed by Misfits after. So he wasn't really in the pool there. So with nukeduck, you had this player who just had a fantastic year, who was for sure the biggest name available, who will attract other players as well, which is such a key part of building a roster. Like, if you want to build a super competitive roster, you need to be able to find players that others,
etc. Yeah,
I mean, a big part of getting Alfari was that we had already gotten nukeduck on board. So he was obviously the highest profile signing we did there, and I think looking back, I still think that was the correct choice, because one, he again brought in other players. He had, I believe, he was in the MVP running for this first spring split we had, where we headed to the finals, and he was, doing super well. So like he brought in what we needed from him. I don't know. I mean, I think part of it is motivation after competing for 5-6 years. It became much harder for him to do what he actually used to do very well, which was very wide champion pool, be a very active player in solo queue, and like really like dive into all kinds of different things in the game that other people weren't necessarily thinking about in how he wanted to play, which is also why he was such a good split pusher, and he was able to always like do well individually in that role. I think part of that maybe made it hard for him, and then also I just think when we failed in the first summer, that hit him insanely hard, because this was the team that had all the pieces.
It was at least supposed to go to Worlds, let's be real, if not win the title, right?
Yeah, go straight to Worlds. We had just made the final in the first one. Yes, we lost to G2 super fast, but we beat Fnatic in the semifinal there, and going into that summer split, the whole atmosphere was, we need to be more like G2, we need to practice like G2, we need to play as many different things as G2, and that ended up being really hard for the team. It was actually a team that was much better when things were really stable, and it was like kind of the same things being done every day and every game. But that was one of the learnings, obviously, in hindsight. But I think then going into the next year, like, I don't think he played bad. That's my honest opinion on that. But I can understand that when you look at his name, you look at him being a mid laner in Europe, you need more impact than what he had last year.
I don't think people would say he played badly. I think that he's very consistent. That's always been his thing. But you have to surround him with players who are going to do something, who are flashier, or who are going to be like the true carries of the roster. I think that's the criticism.
Yeah,
so his upside is not huge, but he also has a very high floor.
I think that was the biggest change between year 1 and year 2, which I can't say why that happened. He was a very demanding player in terms of what he wanted to do and what he wanted other people to do for the majority of the first year, which you need to be able to do as a mid laner in Europe, because you can't just let the other guys do it against you and set you behind. They get mid prior, they use that to take over the rest of the map. Or if you're playing a split pusher, you need to be able to coordinate your team so that they're setting you up to succeed as the split pusher. He was extremely good at that in the first year and did less of that in the second year, which I think also impacted his own carry potential. But I think what happens sometimes in the community is people get really tired of one specific name and they don't understand why that person continues to be there. And then a lot of extra hate comes in, which is completely unnecessary and completely uncalled for. Like, nukeduck isn't on Excel because he's best friends with Youngbug.
Sure.
Like,
that's a Reddit narrative and a half, isn't it?
he's on Excel because they did tryouts. They did tryouts for like multiple weeks, because I know that because of Denick. They did tryouts with Denick. And they found him to be the best fit and the strongest fit for the team. He had his break, came back much more motivated. That's what he talked about himself. Like, they pick him for a reason. And as you said as well, Thorin, like, they're putting a lot on this because it is a very risky PR move, to do this right now. But they obviously believe that he can add way more to the team than whatever other option they had. And Excel is a team who literally lacked voices and leaders, like, big time, which is why they have Denick and nukeduck now, because they're two people who will literally tell you, when things are going well for them, this is how we need to play, this is what we need to do, and can that way add something to a team that was probably missing that, based on what they were talking about as well, from before. So I really hope for the best for nukeduck. I think he's such a great guy, and I think the hate he's getting is just uncalled for. But then again, I can't stop people from typing whatever they want on Reddit and Twitter. That's up to them. I know nukeduck doesn't read 99% of it, so I don't think it impacts him necessarily that badly.
I'll give you one angle that people don't seem to actually take into account. This is a pretty significant one, right? We all give the junglers, like, leeway when their whole style gets nerfed, when their fucking champion pool gets, if someone's like a god on Lee Sin and they make it tank junglers, we understand it's going to be difficult for that guy. He's not going to be at his peak. He's going to have to learn to play the game a different way. nukeduck's entire fucking strength of side laning was removed from the game effectively in 2020. And so what ended up happening? Think about how Larson came into the LEC and was dominating. I just play Orianna. I'm just a fucking mid laner. Let's have some dragon fights. I'm winning fucking team fights. This is awesome. That's the opposite of a nukeduck. I don't want to see nukeduck on fucking Orianna like that. I imagine it makes sense what you're saying about the communication there, Deficio. One thing I've always said is, if you're the really, really good split pusher, you should be shot calling all the time, because you have to be able to tell people how they're going to play around what you're doing. You have to constantly communicate, like, I can extend a bit here, so maybe hold off here. No, they're going to come now, so we're going to have to regroup. If all of a sudden you're just a basic bitch guy having to play fucking Orianna every game and have a dragon fight, like, you're in for a hard time. And then also, who were the players who were like the ones who had some issues, or with the rookies, it's his jungle support. the people who are helping set some of this stuff up. So to me, it's like, I'm not giving excuses. If you think he played bad, he played bad. At the end of the day, the results are the results. But if you were trying to design a way to make it like the nightmare simulator for nukeduck, 2020 might have been it, just saying. And by the way, it's not like Astralis was an awesome team this split, so it's not like you had an awesome team going in there. So I still don't hold out hope. I still think when you're a player who's played as long as he has and been as good as he has, it's certainly possible to have a comeback split. Certainly
they can definitely have a comeback split for sure. I think he has to be together with Patrick, literally the 2-star players in Excel if they're going to make playoffs. Like all eyes are going to be on those two guys. It was actually the whole killing split push, the dragon stacking. It was such a hit to us when we had Alfaria and nukeduck. We literally were like, so good when we could get them ahead early. Alfaria would just get ahead on his own, right? He would just like run over whoever he was against, and then a jungle support could coordinate with nukeduck for mid lane specifically, and then we would put them on 2 champions who would outscale 1v1 against whatever mid and top the other guys had. And you would then put them in 2 side lanes, and the game was like slow paced enough that they couldn't just 4-stack dragons at like 20 minutes or whatever. It was such a strong play style to have, unless you played against G2 in best of 5s. But then when that became, because if you guys remember, the first split with the dragon stacking was literally just like instant stack strong dragons on 3 dragons. Enemy team has to fight you. So the first team fight in the game would be guaranteed to happen at like 18 minutes already. And by that time, like you have had no time to have any impact on a strong 1v1 character. And we tried to pick them, and then we had to go into team fighting against like Azir, whatever, Kai'Sa, stuff like this, and you're like running in with like trying to flank them or whatever around the dragon because you have to fight it, and then it was just like so difficult to play. Which is a huge shame.
Think about the timeline here he's talking about. He builds a team that should essentially be the gods of split pushing, and they have fucking Mithy as the support player as well. Like, if I'm the GM, it's like, oh, this is amazing. I've won the league. I've done it. I've actually done it. Without all the money, I've gotten like 2nd or 3rd best player by like fan ranking of every role except Mithy. And then Mithy's like a genius at the game. And I've got these amazing split pushers. This is Europe, baby. This is what it's all about. And then it's like, the game's being changed. We're removing that slowly from the game. It's like, as a GM, how are you supposed to plan for that? You don't know that in the off season. They don't tell you in your ear, but here's what we're going to do to the game. Like, you don't know, do you? You think it's just nerfed.
Definitely sucked. I'll say that much. Definitely sucked. Could still made worlds. We lost that last games of Splice in the gauntlet. Yeah. Sadly. No excuses for last summer, obviously. Just no excuses.
I mean, to be fair, you had a sub jungler. You had Zanzara, like obviously called had to go out the line. Yeah, there was a lot. That's what the summer split in 2019 is where I'm just sad because we had the team to do it, right? And then things happened, and in the end, we also had to play, of course, with Zanzara, right? And he obviously did a really, really great job stepping in on such short notice, and he was playing EU Masters like at the same time, so he didn't even like really he like only scrimmed like I think 2 days with us or something, and then he like had to stop in while he was also playing EU Masters on the side. And we took Spice to 5 games there, and before they 3-0'd Schalke in the next game, like I look back at that and I'm just like really unhappy. I'm not mad about anything. I'm just really unhappy and like sad that we didn't make Worlds there. Where last summer, obviously, there's just more regrets because things could have been done much different to get a much better result than what we got, obviously. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.